they've been giving me a lot more information about what's actually been going on, and that the aliens during open contact are just us from the seventh dimension. So they're technically not aliens, they're humans. So, but they're alien to us, like, but they look exactly like us. However, they are showing the alternative timeline version of us that survived from the fallout, and they're the P-47s and the P-52s that's going around right now. And so that's also interesting. All this stuff is like coming out right as my channels are like lining up with it. So I'm obsessed with like the fact that so much of my channels is lining up with like the 3D reality. And so that's what I want to say is like we've already been getting like, you know how like I talk about the technology that they're going to bring, the advanced technology? We've already been getting that. Through our phones, through computers, through like advanced Bluetooth technology, through drones, through like all this like advanced technology. Like, and I did always wonder that. I was like, how the fuck did we go from like light bulbs to like literally like iPhones? Like, how did we do that? Or like, you know, like Wii's and stuff. You're just like, how the hell? And the thing is like they intricately talked about the invention of like the light bulb and the telephone and all these things. And then they just kind of stopped talking about inventions. And they just start talking about the CEOs of the companies. You know, they don't really talk about the inventors of it. And even when they talk about like Bill Gates and like Steve Jobs and whoever else was involved in that, like they don't really talk about like how they invented the computer. They just like talk about like coding a little bit and like, but they don't talk about like they do talk about like the board and like stuff like that, but it's just like, I don't know, something suspicious. Like that's probably why Bill Gates is linked to the computer, because he probably has been in cahoots with like advanced alien technology. Same with like fucking Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Peter Thiel and all of them, I'm sure. They're all contacted by aliens. So this is gonna be again really interesting to see like how how far they've been seeding this. Like that, I'm gonna let them take that on. I do not want to be responsible for that shit, because I think they've been like straight up feeding these like psychopaths this like shit to say about like, you know, like the like what they're like all the project whatever, what's it called, Project 2025 or whatever, you know, the crazy like super uber conservative Christian nationalist shit. Anyway, we'll get into that. But also, so that's what they wanted me to say too, is that not only have they obviously been seeding our reality with seeded transmissions, and there's like a lot of suspicious like advanced technology that we just happen to have, and it's in the hands of extremely corrupt people as well. So how did that happen? Also, you think about that. And they all kind of have the same archetype. They're all kind of like nerdy, weird, like insecure men who like all of a sudden got power. So anyway, so this is going to be interesting. Like I said, this is going to be a very interesting reveal of all of this, because this was all designed like very intricately. And so they're telling me like how Dolores Cannon talks about this being a play. Like she talked about that. That was like a big part of her channels of like, this is a play and you like get to choose your role. Well, that's like what they're doing right now, is now they're showing us behind the scenes is what they're saying. So like we're in the play and awakening and like also getting all this information about the seventh dimension and all that stuff is like the behind the scenes of what's going on right now. And then that is like, so it's kind of like a microcosm of a microcosm of a microcosm of a microcosm. You know how like that's how the universe like works and shit. You know like how like they do the pictures of like the like all nature looks like parts of our like, you know, body, like lungs and trees look the same, or like neural pathways and like mycelium networks look the same and like stuff like that. Well, that's like what they're telling me. Like it's like, okay, so here in the fifth dimension. We're kind of like, we're third, fourth, fifth dimension. So they're going to explain the dimension difference because I kind of get it all messed up. But we're technically fifth. That's what we're just going to say for namesake. So here in this dimension, we are experiencing like the experience of a collapse. Like we're fully immersed in it. In the seventh dimension, it's more like observatory. Like they had a good society, and then all of a sudden, like stuff starts to happen in their reality, and then they have to like do all this stuff to. So like they're telling me like how we have like rewired our brains. You know, a lot of us have like, you know, done a lot of like rewiring and like going into Christ consciousness and forgiving and compassion and understanding and healing and all that stuff. Well, in the seventh dimension, they have to like do all this timeline work. Like we're doing the timeline work within our own conscious awareness right now, in our brains, in our minds, by like transmuting this place and like breaking the paradigms of reality, believing in a spiritual awakening, being weird, being authentic, being gay, being trans, you know, going against religion, going against the systems of oppression, all of that stuff, right? Believing the truths of the world, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, also standing up for the right things, like all of that is all like where they are doing like timeline repair over here. So like in the seventh dimension, it's like this whole like, it's like this other like layer of God, because you know how like because God's the creator of this entire universe. And so like it's like God is like the director. Then in the seventh dimension, it's like the producers and all the people who like do all the behind the scenes work. And then here in the fifth and third and fourth dimensions, it's like the actual actors. Like we're the ones like living out the play basically. And it is really beautiful because I'm like, well, that's kind of, so like this is kind of like a really special time, guys. Like I hate to be like that, but it's like we don't always get to like be fully immersed in the collapse itself and then get to experience the other side of that. Like in the seventh dimension, we're fully immersed back in the memory of it. Just like we're gonna go back into like Yeshua's time and all that stuff. They're gonna show us all of that, so we're gonna be like immersed back in the memory of it. So like each ascension, it's like different, but they're telling me like this one is very special. So I hope that can help you guys like reframe kind of this time as well. Again, like that's kind of like what my channel is all here for, is to help us reframe and like kind of like it's like a compass, like reorient ourselves like back and point our star north instead of like south, which is like where all that shit's pointing, which is our 3D reality, which is also, again, it goes against our neuroscience. It goes against our neurobiology. It is actually a biological challenge right now to believe in like hope and faith in the future and like all that stuff, because how we exist and feel comfortable and safe within our nervous systems is by whatever is presented in our 3D realities. So again, I like to, you know, remind people that this is extremely challenging. So if you are continuing to, you know, stay on the spiritual awakening path and, you know, just survive, like that's like a huge deal. That's a huge deal. That's why I'm saying like you're part of some galactic council, because if you're doing like rewiring work and you're on New Earth, you're part of the council, because like you can't, like it's like energy is neither created nor destroyed. So up in the seventh dimension, you're doing some type of timeline work. Because it's basically like they have to get all hands on deck basically up there in the seventh dimension. And so that's like why all these people down here, like some people are getting light language and like all this stuff, like so it's kind of, again, hard to explain because they're going to explain more about it, but it's just like that's like the gist of it. So I'm like, this is so cool. This is so cool, guys. Like this is so much more, this brings so many more puzzle pieces together for me. I feel like this just like makes so much sense. And like, I don't know, I'm just like, wow, this is like, I think to date the craziest downloads I've gotten, and it's like literally just feels like full circle. Like everything makes sense now. But now I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? I guess just wait and just see what God has planned and the aliens have planned out, because they've done all this other timeline work, so I'm sure they got the rest of this shit figured out.